I want to be very clear. We do not expect harmful levels of radiation to reach the West Coast, Hawaii, Alaska, or U.S. territories in the Pacific. That is the judgment of our Nuclear Regulatory Commission and many other experts. Furthermore, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and public health experts do not recommend that people in the United States take precautionary measures beyond staying informed. And going forward, we will continue to keep the American people fully updated, because I believe that you must know what I know as president. That was bullshit.
Right, okay, let's start from the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the broadcast. This is your host, Hattrick Penry, and the name of the broadcast is Hattrick Penry Unbound, because there is nothing, no subject that is too taboo or too difficult to address. Now, for those of you that are new to Plume-Gate, I'm going to try to remind myself that many people are joining my broadcast daily who may not be at the level of knowledge some of us are, so I need to hit you with a layman's terms and remind myself that some people don't know what a shill or a troll or have never heard about Plume-Gate and don't know about a lot of these things. So let's do this right from the beginning with Plume-Gate. And again, Plume-Gate, this all began on March 11 of 2011. There was a meltdown, a series of meltdowns in Fukushima, Japan. And Plume-Gate is the evidence we have uncovered in the NRC Freedom of Information documents, which are free and available to the public online. Inside those documents, many of us researchers, well, I should say a handful of researchers, have gone in to discover that there was indeed a massive concerted effort to cover up and conceal the effects of the radioactive plume and fallout from Japan. In the documents, it's clearly indicated that they know all about 3 Mile Island, they know all about Chernobyl, yet when Fukushima went down, we were not even given the common courtesy of rainwater warnings that other countries were. Okay, other countries were given rainwater warnings. France is a great example, and they were also told not to eat leafy green vegetables. So while we were in the direct path of the plume in the Pacific jet stream, and we were to suffer the brunt of the radioactive cloud and plume, we were not given any kind of a warning. We were not given proper precautions. In fact, the exact opposite, as you have just heard, President Obama told us everything is fine, and at the end of that week, by the 18th, I believe him and his family had taken a trip to South America, which was not a planned trip, is my understanding, although if you look it up in the online now, they say it was pre-planned. But again, I tell you, we are in the 1984 George Orwellian era, and if you've read my blog, if you've followed my videos, you know they can tamper with information. They can go on your computer. I was hacked this morning. I had to shut down and reboot everything. I had a major problem simply because I am trying to expose an individual who is being less than forthright with the American public. So please keep that in mind. Now, as I've said, Plume-Gate is the massive multi-agency conspiracy. FEMA, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Energy, NRC, USAID, White House. Others were involved, clearly, and this, again, is clearly indicated in the FOIA documents. You can read all the little bits and pieces that put together this massive orchestrated effort to hide this. Now, what has been the effect of the radioactive plume and clouds, you may ask? Well, there's several studies been done. The initial study was done by the Sherman-Mangano pair, Jeanette Sherman, and Mangano, can't think of his first name offhand, and this was an excellent mortality index study that showed us indeed the 14 weeks prior to the meltdown, the death rate was at one particular level. 14 weeks after, the measured 14 weeks after the plume and radioactive fallout hit, the mortality rate rose significantly, especially in infants, because their cells are dividing at a higher rate. The initial study put the figures at 14 weeks after around 13,000. That was later updated with a more in-depth analysis, and they brought the numbers the 14 weeks after the radioactive plume hit North America. That number was bumped up to 20-something thousand, 22,000. I've also gone in and highlighted a number of things from Bobby One, who is an excellent researcher who has also gone into the mortality index study and indicated long-term what we can expect from the fallout from Fukushima. And by that I mean by the year 2030. And these are estimates, but we're going to look at well over 1 million fatalities. Now this, again, as my understanding, this is just in North America. Now we're not talking about the rest of the world. And when you go to Chernobyl And if you look at the Sherman-Mangano study, I believe there's a link on my broadcast if you want to look into that. And I strongly suggest that you read the Chernobyl Costs and Consequences of the Catastrophe for People and Environment. I'm paraphrasing there. It's a long title, but I've got the link in there. Very interesting read. And they knew everything from Chernobyl. And Chernobyl had a cover-up as well. It was neighboring states that indicated, hey, we're picking up radiation at our nuclear plants. Our sensors are going off. Russia, what can you tell us? It's coming from your direction. Talk to us. And they denied it as long as they could, but ultimately the truth leaks out. In the Chernobyl study, you can clearly see that 900,000, 1 million people over time will have perished from the impact of the radiation. And this doesn't have to be one particular illness. They could die from a thyroid problems or cancer, or just any number of things. So sometimes it's difficult to point and say, hey, this person died from cancer related to Fukushima. Again, a classic disinformation tactic is to insist on 100% absolute proof. Well, we're pretty close to that with Fukushima and the meltdowns. I've provided the Chernobyl-Fukushima bird study, which is an excellent scientific study that also matches the methodology and the results of the Sherman-Mangano study. And again, this is the same thing that the Nestorenko couple and the Yablokov, I believe, is the other scientist in the Chernobyl study. All of these studies are in agreement. They're congruent, the methodology is the same, and the results, the end analysis, appears to be the same. We also have the Fukushima fingerprint that even Arnie Gundershall will tell you on fair winds that they have matched the particular radiation that has hit the West Coast and indeed all of North America. Michigan is hard hit as well. Florida is hard hit as well. They've matched us to Fukushima, so we have a lock on this. Now, people will ask, well, if so many people died and if the cover-up was so huge, why is no one in jail? Why are there no subpoenas going out? Why is there no court case? Well, that's a very good question. And again, I would put to you that the level of information control in the United States and indeed in this global conspiracy, and I'm going to play you a clip from JFK later. I've gone in and clipped just the very relevant section as to what he talks about this conspiracy. Their best skill set is information suppression. And they're second to none when they do that. And I say that because if you go out amongst the mainstream media, have a nice long look at the so-called alternative media, and then take yourself a look at the independent media, which is now being very heavily infiltrated because it is the last area they can infiltrate, and you will see there's a complete lack of discussion about Plume-Gate. Not the radiation, not the radioactive kelp, not the strawberries that are becoming deformed, about the proof of the multi-agency cover-up contained within the Freedom of Information documents. And not just that, when you look at these documents, you really begin to understand just how corrupt and failed the nuclear power industry is. It's outdated, it's very dangerous, and it's this huge giant conspiracy cover-up keeping the whole thing running, right? It's like an old broke-down 1970 Cadillac, and these people keep throwing old parts on it, but you know the car's got to be parked and put off the side of the road sooner or later. Somebody's going to get hurt. So their information control is second to none. And the evidence of this, well, when this happened, this was Obama's run-up to the election, folks. And we can conclude one of three things with Obama. Because either he knew all about it and helped cover it up, or he's a total bungling idiot and had no clue, or he's just lied to everybody around him. But either of those possibilities is horrible. And the guy still got elected because alternative media, by and large, remained very quiet on the subject. Arnie Gunderson doesn't talk about the FOIA documents. If he does, it's only in passing. He'll even tell you he knows what's in them, but he won't talk. He won't elaborate on it. He won't make highlight it. He won't showcase it. He will not go in depth. Why? Because it is extremely damning of the federal government, all these agencies tasked with keeping Americans safe. Well, obviously not. If they would conceal and hide the radioactive plume, I put it to you, they would destroy the two buildings. They would blow up the federal building. They would engage in illegal activities abroad and at home. You have only to study and put your own time into this to discover for yourself. Don't take it from me. I'm going to tell you just like Bill Cooper. Don't trust me. I'm telling you right now, don't trust me. And I'm telling you right now, check everything I say and double check it. I insist upon it. Plus, I want to get you involved. I want to get people involved in exposing the corruption that resulted in so many American deaths of innocent lives and innocent children. Now, today I want to go ahead and dig right into the screen captures that we have because I've promised each show from here on out, I'm not going to be distracted. We're going to talk 30 minutes, maybe more, but at least 30 minutes about Plume-Gate. until something happens in this country and I see people going to jail. And I should see mass arrests on an unprecedented scale. And until Hattrick Penry sees that, they have control, and they are clearly in control, and we are along for the ride. And it's not a pleasant ride. This is not a circus ride. Okay, we're not at Disney World anymore. This is very serious. People are dying over this. Okay, I'm going to read to you, I'm going to preface all these discussions of Plume-Gate with the reason why we are saddled with this outdated, archaic power system, which is just a monopoly that you or I cannot recreate in our backyard. It's simply thus. Let me read to you from David Wilcock's book, The Sourcefield Investigations. Please put your opinions of David Wilcock to the side. I know he's very controversial, but this information is garnered from the Institute for New Energy and also from the Federation of American Scientists. Quote, according to the Institute for New Energy, as of 1997, quote, the U.S. Patent Office has classified over 3,000 patent devices or applications under the secrecy order. Title 35, U.S. Code, 1952, sections 181 through 188, end quote. The Federation of American Scientists revealed that by the end of fiscal year 2010, this number had ballooned to 5,135 inventions and included, quote, review and possible restriction, end quote, on any solar cell with greater than 20% efficiency, or any power system that is more than 70 to 80% efficient at converting energy. Now, this is all documented here, and you can read where he gets the sources from. According to Dr. O'Leary, some researchers are bought off and their discoveries put on a shelf. Others are threatened into submission, while others die under strange circumstances. You may be familiar with Stan Meyer's water car. I wrote about this early on with my gig with the Intel Hub before I quit the Intel Hub. And I like to tell that story because it's an amazing invention. Basically, Stan Meyer's, what he did, I believe it's called electrolysis. You separate the oxygen from the hydrogen. You have 2 units of hydrogen, 1 unit of oxygen. If you apply enough electricity, apparently it separates this, and you can have your hydrogen and you can have your oxygen. It's very flammable, very combustible, much more efficient than gasoline. What is the byproduct? There is no byproduct. That's what I'm told. So his water car that literally split water into a flammable gas, ran it right into the pistons on a regular engine, just like in your fossil fuel vehicle you have outside, and he was able to drive down the highway. There's an old ABC news video from back in the day, way back in the day, that shows Stan Meyers driving down the highway on his dune buggy running on water. Now, the Pentagon naturally was very interested. The story ends up at a Cracker Barrel restaurant where Stan Meyers, meeting with the Pentagon, runs into the parking lot yelling, "They poisoned me," and he dies in the parking lot. You can't make this stuff up. I implore you to research and look into this yourself. This is exactly how it happens. Now, those are the ones that they have to deal with harshly. In my own personal experience, my father, who is a retired nuclear physicist that taught at the University of Florida, originally did thin film detectors and then went on to mass spectrometry and has a number of patents, improvements on the mass spectrometer. He's got what I call a super battery. It's just a very efficient design, a design on a battery, highly efficient. Well, he had a number of proposals that the Bush administration and Obama administration called my dad in, called a number of scientists in. He wasn't the only one. And they had a press conference to say, hey, we're looking into alternative energy. We're such awesome, nice guys. We want to get off the oil and get off this other stuff. And they talked about my dad's invention, and they never called him back. They never had anything to do with him ever again. But they used it as a press coverage potential to make it appear as if they were concerned, and they appear as if they were interested in alternative energies. Meanwhile, my dad, who writes out these proposals, which are extremely detailed and lengthy and time-consuming to come up with, they're all denied. Everyone is denied. See, they don't have to seize upon his patent because they just won't finance him. They just won't help him to bring his product to market. This is also very similar with a guy in Australia who has a self-contained Tesla device, whatever you want to call it, that generates thousands of watts of electricity. But he said when he goes to the bank to ask for funding to go to production, he is denied every time. Why? It threatens the power monopoly. The current power monopoly, what is that? Nuclear power. Is it safe? No. We are going to find out all nuclear plants have effluents. Okay, that's a nice word the NRC came up with, or somebody did, to say radioactive discharge, and they all do it. Google Tooth Fairy Project and look into that, and you'll see the closer to a nuclear power plant you go, when they test the children's teeth, the baby teeth of the children, they find higher levels of strontium-90. It can only be from the power plant. It's not Cold War era bomb testing. That's what the shills and nuclear apologists want you to believe. They have all the money in the world to convince you that up is down, that hot is cold, that nuclear power is safe.